And I have two guest analysts in the studio for the rest of the program who will offer their perspectives on the news and talking points of the day. The political affairs commentator, Arise News analyst and head of mass communications at Bayes University in Abuja, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, is here. And the policy strategist, Arise News analyst and founder and executive director of Agora Policy, Waziri Adio, is also here. Thank you, gentlemen, for talking to us. Let me come to you, Waziri, first. You heard Dr. Danladi Bako there. Some people will say we're flogging a dead horse with this thing about the Chatham House affair. But of course, they requested a right to reply to Professor Yusuf, who was fairly strong in his condemnation and assessment of the performance of Tinubus at that event. What did you make of what Dr. Bako had to say?
Okay, let me say that I expect the accusation and the counter, the counter from both sides. So it goes with the terrain. When campaign season, you don't want to give your opponent an inch.
Absolutely.
No matter, even if the Chatham House experience that turned out differently, is the responsibility of the opposition to knock him. They will always look for things to say about about his appearance, what he said, and stuff like that. So it's standard, and it's also standard for the ruling party to also want to defend themselves. As Dr. Bako said, campaigns revolve around two principles. You canonize your candidate and you demonize the other. So, but having said that, I can also see, incidentally, I can see the points of the two sides. The first one, which the PDP made, which is not only the PDP that should be making that, everybody should be making that. When you go to a place like that, people want to hear the candidate, right? So it's the candidate that has been invited to come and share his ideas. It's not just about reading a speech, which, you can read a good speech, you can read a bad speech, right? But people also want to see what you are saying when they ask you questions, and they want to read between the lines, and they want to also gauge so many things about your comportment, about your lucidity, and all kind of stuff. So you want to listen to the candidates or the person that is offering themselves forward. That's the first thing. The second thing from the other side also is that they also have the right to decide on how they want to play it. What I can figure, and I think what most people can also figure out, is that they are trying to compensate for something. So this is not maybe people are thinking it's only Chatham House where this has happened. No. Even in some of these town hall meetings, he will speak, and he will also invite members of his team to speak. So in a way, it's not a good look because it seems as if they are trying to compensate for something. But in another way, you can also say that maybe what they are trying to say is that, yes, there's a man, but there are also people behind him.
So it's more about a team than a single individual.
Because, yes, you need to have a very strong candidate, a very strong president, but one man does not make the forest. So it's those two approaches, conflicting. One is that you want to present a team. The other is that you want to see the man who can deal with the issue of the team later. So this is what you expect from both sides. They will, even if he didn't delegate the answering of the questions to others, it's the responsibility of PDP, and others to say no, he didn't do well, or to attack, the things that he has said, and all of that. So I expect that, and I can see both sides, and I think we should, at the end of the day, the viewers, the voters will decide what strategy.
Well, I have to say that's a very good analysis, and I wonder, Professor Adeniyi, whether you agree with that or whether you want to take it in a different direction. Feel free to do that.
Well, not necessarily. We're in a pre-election season, and in this kind of season, what you see manifesting is high-stake partisanship, And of course, what will also be endangered in that kind of atmosphere is objectivity. You hardly see things, from the position of evidence, from the position of facts. Most of the time, there will be suffocation with subjectivity. we're going to cope with this until the election, and maybe to some extent after the election as well. But the gratifying thing is that even within the mess, within the shenanigan, we are still able to see some reason prevailing in the way partisans are marshalling their points, despite the extremes, from some of them, I think we've said a lot about the Chatham House thing. It was an experience, it was an innovation, it was something that was an outlier, something that we probably didn't expect, but I just developed myself. I'm thinking of finding a way to manage it, and that's what the other day I was telling you about. Managing my expectation. Maybe, it's about expectation, it's about the mindset. If I have a personality that I'm relating with, and I see that it's tending towards a situation where that is counter to my own expectation, to my own, what I anticipate from him. I would rather than maybe being judgmental, being argumentative about it in a situation where I see that he probably cannot help himself, I would just try to control, my emotions around it and situate him within that junction. And that's what I think we should do, really, because I do not see the APC presidential aspirant, improving beyond the level that he is in terms of what has been suspected to be problematic cognition. I don't see him improving before the election and even after, but that does not detract, from some other abilities and capacities that might be embedded in him. Maybe this is the reality that we should probably come to terms with. And if we think that that's enough not to support him, why not? The coast is clear. The field is open. Electorates are free. To choose from the pack that we have. Presenting themselves before us. So it's just a ball game, and we should just play it in accordance.
Right. Do you think, though, and let's keep beating that dead horse now, but
yeah, it's fine.
Do you think that he might have boxed himself into a corner now? Because if he had, everybody saw Buhari. Buhari wasn't the most brilliant person on earth. Nor was Obasanjo and all these people, but they just came out and talked.
Yeah.
And allowed themselves to be assessed on that level. Yeah. Do you think that now that this impression is being created, that he's actually dodging? That's the impression a lot of people have, that he's avoiding, let me put it that way, going one-on-one, that when he eventually does, or every time that there is an opportunity and he puts in a word, people are going to be assessing him much more strongly than they normally would if he had just done it?
Okay, let me say a few things. The first one is that I don't think it's completely true that he's been avoiding a one-on-one. I had a one-on-one with BBC, right? That went on for like 8 minutes.
I saw that.
So that is one. Two is that this is also not the first time that this is happening. It might have happened in a different way, right? In 1998-99, Obasanjo refused to debate Olufalaye. In 2003, Obasanjo also didn't debate. In 2007, Umaru Yar'Adua didn't debate. In 2011, Jonathan didn't debate Buhari. In 2015, Buhari also refused to debate, Jonathan, right? So the point is that, we have had this tradition, which in a way is problematic, but in some instances, those who perceive themselves as the front runners, they feel that, they don't want to lose the momentum, by putting themselves out there. So the people who are the runners up, they are the ones who have the incentive, to keep going, from one place to the other and all of that. So it doesn't mean that it shouldn't change, but I'm just saying that we need to situate that people sometimes you don't want to surrender the advantage that you have for strategic political reasons, and it has worked for them. Yes, it's our responsibility as the media and as the larger society to insist that we need to, not just that we need to hear from them, not just that they need to do one-on-one, but also that they need to do debate, right? Because we need to really hear from them, especially at this point in time when we're at a critical juncture in our history. There are many issues that we need people to speak to, and not just in true manifestos and through surrogates. No, we need to hear from them, and we need to, grill them to get them to tell us, the concrete things that they need to do. So, in a way, yes, he's following a problematic tradition, but it's not the one. The only thing that is different now is that even when he has some other engagements that are not necessarily debates, he also extends it by now doing delegation, which is but
Right.
it's a matter of strategy. Will this strategy work? We don't know.
We'll have to wait and
we'll
see.
have to wait and see.
Right, but Professor Adeniyi, Dr. Dan Ladibaka made a statement where he said that these things, Chatham House and all the rest of it, doesn't really matter to the man in the hinterland, in the southeast or the southwest or the north, and that, what's all this big deal about going on about whether he talked about Chatham House or not, that it really is not going to have any effect on the person, that they're much more concerned with what have you done for me to improve my life.
Yeah, it's a very large extent, Charles. I think it's true. I mean, he's right, with that assertion, because sometimes some of these debates, some of these conversations are largely limited to the elites, the mass of voters are not necessarily aware of some of these controversies, except it gets really bad, and hardly will it go beyond the level at which it is now. Do not forget, this is not the first controversy that we're going to be having, and of course, most controversies, most back and forth, they always have their own lifespan. Sometimes 48 hours, sometimes 1 week. Hardly will you see anyone continuing until for weeks, for months, and such likes. And do not forget again, like the point we've always made, and which I will also still stand by, that minds are already made up largely on who voters will go for between the 4 or the 18 candidates. Minds are already made up, and it's going to be very difficult, for those positions to change. I doubt if there's going to be anything fundamental happening that would tilt, the direction a voter might go at the
Well,
end of the
according
day.
to the polls, and I apologize for interrupting you, if the polls are anything to go by, there's still a significant percentage of people who are undecided. And you would have thought that the candidates would be trying to woo those people.
I would rather just think that we're not disputing the polls anyway, but I rather just think that it's just for the candidates, to ensure at this point that they do not lose the support base that they already have. What they are trying to do between themselves now is to shake their individual support bases to see how they can grab from from each other. And some of these things don't really matter in our own climate yet. We are still carried away. We are still deep-seated in primordial consideration. What's his religion? What's his ethnicity? What structure does he have? How much mobilization can he do?
Right.
How much support can he give us with respect to logistics? What promise is he giving us? That will serve the purpose of reward. I'm expecting some reward. What guarantee do I have that will actually that will be rewarding for me? Do not forget, as a politics of prerogative, a politics of compensation, a politics of priority, and that's not about to change. Because I don't see it in the air, except we see somebody that will be very, very disruptive. And of course, the one that looks very disruptive is also still there, making his mark. And is making his mark. But of course, there are still some impediments around him. We do not know how it's going to pan out yet.
Right.
But the situation is still really very dicey. Yeah.
Well, I'm waiting for somebody who's got a magic wand. not so much Harry Potter, but maybe from the Harry Potter school, who can wave it and things will improve dramatically. But let's move away if you're happy with that.
Can I say something on that very
Briefly,
quickly?
though.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
I don't agree that people do not care about Chatham House because why did he go there in the first instance if it's not important? I also do not agree that the way you perform in any time.
Well, I didn't say people don't care about Chatham House. You said a certain type of person doesn't. You see what I mean?
Yeah, but I don't think it must have, for him to have decided to go to Chatham House, it means that it's important to a very important, demographic for him. And if you lose that, so what have you achieved?
Right.
So you can actually, so it's not just about exposing yourself, but about communicating. It's about how effective that you are. And also the issue of undecided voters. I have issues with some of the polls that I've seen, and I stand to be corrected. And it's not peculiar to Nigeria. We have seen polls all over the world that have been kind of.
But there are also people who are undecided. There always are.
But we don't know. We don't know the size. Sometimes when people tell you they are undecided, it's because they don't want to tell you their mind. Let me give you a classic example in polling. You are a female. You are not a female, of course. And you're asking Professor Adeniyi, you say, and he's not the box I want to put him in. Let's assume that Professor Adeniyi beats up his wife, right? And you are a female.
That's a very dangerous example.
I say you don't fall into that category. but let's have
this.
Should we pursue that line?
Okay. I will draw that.
Yes,
It's like being asked, do you beat your wife kind of question, right? So people gauge what is safe to tell this person. So sometimes people tell you what they think you want to. So if they don't want to tell you,
I understand
they are undecided.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what happened in America, for example, with a lot of
Even
people
with Brexit,
who support Donald Trump.
Even with
they
Brexit,
didn't want people to know that
even
they
with
support.
Brexit, the polls show that the Remain will win.
Okay.
Whereas,
anyway, we've got 2 minutes and we've gobbled up a lot of the time, but I wanted to ask you this particular question. If you can take 1 minute to answer it, then he can take 1 minute. Obviously he doesn't. The professor is a very polished, very civilized, and very gentle person. But let's talk about the NNPC briefly, because I know you're an oil man. NNPC saying on Arise Television how they've raised crude oil production from 900,000 barrels per day to 1.6 billion barrels per day, but at the same time revealing that Nigeria is losing 21 million barrels monthly and $1.9 billion before recovery, based on a $90 per barrel sort of assessment. What do you make of that?
Okay, many things, and I know that we're running out of time. It's commendable that we're moving from 900,000 barrels to 1.6 million barrels. I want to take them on their word. Ordinarily, I will go by the dictum, trust but verify.
Absolutely.
But, I want to take them on their word. But our OPEC quota is 1.8 million barrels. So if what we have done now is that to bump up to get to 1.6 is commendable, we should keep it up, but we should also realize where that is coming from. I won't attribute that entirely to NNPC. So many things are happening. The Focados line reopened, the Trans Niger pipeline was also coming back on stream, and when people talk about all these figures about how much is being lost, right? I would rather go with the regulator. Right, which says that we're losing between 80,000 barrels to 100,000 barrels per day, right? So I would rather stick with that, because some of these figures we have to look at losses in 2 ways.
Right. Well, we don't have time to look at it in 2 ways.
I need to say this just
very quickly.
There's a loss.
So you've eaten up his time. In addition to saying that he clobbers his wife.
There's a part that is stolen, outright theft. There's a part that is deferred production because of disruption.
Right.
But what the other point I need to make is this: Saudi today said that they had a budget surplus of $27 billion.
Right.
So all oil-producing countries are smiling to the banks,
and we're not.
So we shouldn't be just be content.
That's a very good point. And on that note,
it's commendable, but we should.
On that note, I apologize, Prof. Next time,
that's fine. That's all right. No problem.
We won't let him get away with it.
We're partners.
Thank you very much indeed, Waziri Adio and Professor Abiodun Adeniyi. That's it for this edition of Arise Primetime. Join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja. Bye bye, and thank you for watching.